in a very small scale. And I used to think, I have something I should do. So I used to be very close to him. And he's still alive, doing a small business, still he's on the same level, which used to be about 40 years back. And I thought I should start doing interiors, started with furniture making initially. I started with the table, still I remember. It was 100 rupees. First table which that was the beginning of my business. This is, I'm talking about 41 years back. And then, when I came here, my first visit to Muscat, I went to Intercontinental Hotel, which was under construction. They were doing the finishing. I looked at the ceiling. I was shocked. I've never seen anything like that in my lifetime. So I was thinking to myself, how do I relate to an environment which is completely, probably, I'm from the 17th century walking into 25th century. That was, I can clearly remember all that. And those days, the workers used to come from Lebanon to fix the ceiling. It was a simple ceiling. It was a simple ceiling. I've never seen it in my lifetime. I've never seen it in any project in India. So the challenges were so difficult because even lack of knowledge, no capital, new environment, new geography.
What's the secret then? I mean, you speak about quality. What differentiates you to anybody else? Or is it?
See, quality for me, I think you are born with that. I don't know whether somebody can develop a quality feeling. Anything that I do, the first thing is to make sure that it is the best. It is not an ego. Definitely not an ego. It is something, which is my requirement that I have to be the best. Whichever country I have operated, I become the best. Even India today, even though we are one of the top 4 companies in the country in India. But as a quality brand, there was a recent study by a brand study, which says that we are number 1 brand in the residential sector of the whole country. So quality is, I think it comes within the person and work towards it. And it cannot be, to me, I don't think it can be developed.
So when you think of a development, what are the critical things that you look at? You have a formula of 28 or 30 items that you have to. Can you give us a little insight into those 30 items? And you said plumbing was one, and quality of, those kinds of things.
In the building industry, there are approximately about 28 activities. According to me, the critical activities where you can have a lot of problems from the customer is the wet services, where the water goes. Water goes in the plumbing line, air conditioning line, fire lines, wherever in and out. Unless you make sure of the quality of the work that you create and the design and quality. Design is also equally critical to make sure that it's a successful project. When you commission a building or when you hand over a building, it's not that simple. So for me, the most difficult area is wet services.
Okay, and that's something that you are personally very, very careful.
Even today, if you really ask me, day in and day out, there is a lot of emphasis. I say that water is an enemy to the industry, building industry. Treat that enemy very properly. It could be architectural detail problem, it could be waterproofing, it could be concrete problems, it could be plumbing problems, it could be mechanical problems like the hot water, the chiller lines. All these things over a period of time could bring in leakage in the building.
Let's talk about scaling. Your first $1 million was by about 1984, and then suddenly the acceleration happened. Can you talk about your first big project, something which was outside your comfort zone? By the way, do you get outside your comfort zone regularly, or you don't?
Sorry?
Do you get outside your comfort zone? Do you do things which are beyond your capacity?
Generally, I stick to my this thing. I'm not a social person.
Okay.
I'm not in a social gathering most of the time. Not that I don't go out at all, but 80% of my time is spent on 90% of my time is spent on my business and business thinking. I don't do anything else. Right. I'm an early bird. I get about 4 o'clock in the morning normally, especially when I exercise. and I go to sleep by 10 o'clock.
Right.
So during the, I think I'll say that 90% of my time is mostly spent on my business. Thinking. It's not necessary that I should be in front of a table or in the office. I can be sitting in the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up and I start thinking this, that. A lot of ideas come at that point of time.
Yes. Most people, successful people that I've met, they daydream.
Yeah.
They close their eyes and they imagine.
That's it.
Do you visualize things?
I think it happens.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons of success too.
So again, first big project, really, really big project. When was that?
Well,
what do you remember? And what was your thought process when you were building that?
I did a palace for His Majesty Sultan Qaboos. I would say that's a dream project for me. I'll tell you a small example because, in the palaces, there is plaster Paris work, which is gilded and decorated. Those days, the decorators used to come from Europe. So I used to do the plaster Paris work, and the people from Germany, they used to come, 60 girls used to come from Germany, used to gild the cornices, the molds, etc., the columns, the pilasters, all that. And then this is one thing, which has excited me in my life. I used to look at this and I said, my God, why can't we do it? So I told the head of Diwan in Muscat in those days, that why can't we do it? He had a hearty laugh. He said, Mr. Menon, you do a good plaster Paris job, and this is not done by Indians, it's primarily done by the Europeans. And they have a history of doing it for the last 200 years. And it is not done by Indians. I said, okay. Then there was a German lady who was doing her name is, I forget her name now. Anyway, so I requested her, I called her for a meeting to my office. I said, why don't we partner? Mm-hmm. So I said, why should I partner with you? Because what's the value addition? I said, I cannot tell you the value addition straight away now. But I can tell you it will make a lot of difference if you partner with me. She said, Mr. Menon, I don't think it makes any sense for me. And she went off. So what I did was, I had a painter, Indian painter with me who used to work with me. I sent him to Germany for training to how to gild. He was extraordinary talent. And he learned within 1 week how to gild, and he came back. And I created a team of 4 more artists and created a team of 5 people. So I go back to this person again. I am ready to do a little bit of work. Can you give me a job? He said, Mr. Menon, please don't talk. Please get back to your work, which you're very strong, you do only that. So finally what happened was, I was doing his house. I was doing his personal house, which was not a palace. Of course, palatial decoration, etc., etc. So we did the plaster Paris. So I asked him, excuse me, can I do one room? Mr. Menon, you've been messing away. I said, if you do not like it, I'll paint it back in white color and give it back to you so the others can come and decorate it. And I decorated it, and he couldn't believe what he saw. That was the entry into the decorative work of the palaces. I used to do gypsum plaster, woodwork, paneling, everything I used to do, but decoration work I never used to get. First opportunity I got to do this thing, and he said, how about the strength for you? Because 60, 100 people come. I said, that you should not worry. Now you know that I can do it. So the tender was quoted. I do not know I remember the right numbers. Suppose it is $100. Angela his name. Angela quoted $200. I quoted $100 and took the job. And in $100, $60 was the problem. So Angela said, how can this man do it? And I completed before schedule. Then second job also I took, because tendering, and Angela was the only person who used to tender. So second person entered me. Then after about 2 jobs, Angela came running back to me and said, Mr. Menon, why don't we join? I said, no value addition.
No,
So these are the small stories of life, which is
but these are
like this. I have about few more stories, which
Tell
is
us
very
one or two more-
interesting.
Tell us one or two more stories,
Yeah.
because I think that's life is a combination of memories and stories,
Yeah.
and I think that is really what it is. But let's get back to because a lot of people here are from the property industry, from the finance industry, and they know that you are probably a very hard negotiator, and you're a numbers man. What's the formula there? What are you looking for when it comes to return numbers when you're planning out a project?
See, generally I'm very keen on one thing. When I do business, so I would love to talk about my social responsibility. Half of my wealth goes to charity. I will say social responsibility. So at the same time, when you give half of your wealth, you're also very careful about your business. Business means business. There's no social responsibility. You divide. When I go to my social responsibility, I behave very differently. In my business desk, I behave very differently. If it does not make business sense for me, I will not touch that business. And generally, it does not take more than 10 minutes to understand whether this works or does it work. Till today. Tomorrow, I do not know.
You walk around with a calculator in your
I
pocket.
work with them.
Is there one in your pocket right now?
If there is a calculator.
What is
I generally, because this is the only time I leave this calculator is when I go to sleep.
Yeah. But even when you're sleeping, it's on the side of your
It's
bed.
side of the bed.
And Shobhaji would be very upset, why is this thing there? One side Shobhaji, one side calculator.
She's used to it now because we've been married for 37 years. We'll be completing 37 years in the month of May in 2015.
So,
I always say everything is a number in life.
right.
You tell me anything, I can relate with a number. If it's a time, it's a number. If it's a height, it's a number. It's a weight, it's a number. It's a quantity, it's a number. It's a length, it's a number. Width is a number. Everything is a number. Volume is a number. It's all numbers. Life is full of numbers. People don't understand. So numbers are extremely important. Unless you have sharp, this is my belief, because all are businessmen here. My belief, strong belief is that unless you're very good in numbers, it's very difficult to understand business. This is my belief. You may not agree with me because,
All right,
people
let's
have
take
different
a
strengths.
show of hands. Unless you're very good in numbers, you cannot succeed in business. How many people agree with that? All right, that's the majority. What about other things? What about brand? What about quality? What about innovation? How many people think that numbers can come afterwards and innovation comes first? Yeah, and innovation. There's one lady, there are two ladies, and there's one other gentleman. Everybody's sort of struggling to get their hand up because they're in a minority. So if you go to San Francisco today, in Silicon Valley, nobody talks about numbers. Everybody talks about ideas.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about innovation.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about changing the world. Numbers, they'll follow.
I always say there is one requirement for success. While this is a strength, for you to be successful, you have to think out of the box and you have to be extremely creative.
Yeah.
There's no question. Creative, it's not art. Your business also has to be very creative. Even for managers, see, the biggest challenge is we employ about 25,000 people. The biggest challenge for me is to find managers with a creative mind. Any organization of this scale, at the top you cannot take all the decisions. It has to percolate. The pyramid will have to work perfectly at all the levels, all the layers of the pyramid. So I would say that creativity is one of the most important part of anybody's success. But without number, you cannot relate.
So one of the things I say about numbers, I'm just playing devil's advocate to ask these questions to draw out this thing. When I think about numbers, and when I have a balance sheet or an income statement with me, to me it's all historical. It's already happened. It gives me a good indication, but that's it. It doesn't talk about the future. What are the lead indicators for the future that you look at and think about? Perhaps in numbers, because most numbers I see are historical.
See, numbers definitely help you to, what has happened is very important for you to plan your future. See, numbers definitely give you what exactly has happened. Say a project, a product. What has happened to the product? Say you're selling this product at X price. What is the cost? What is the overheads? It's all numbers. And historically, if you are able to capture that management information system, primarily it is nothing but numbers.
Okay.
So it gives you a clear idea of how exactly it has historically, what has happened in the past. And then you can systematically, or the strategy can be done only if you have, of course there are other things also. Your gut feeling. 80% of the people, businessmen, they go with their gut feeling. While statistics may help you, I will say that statistics will help you to definitely plan your future, especially from the professional business. But the vision is never with the statistics. It is from the guts. So you feel that, for example, I'll tell you a right example. When I picked up this piece of land, which we are developing in Shobha Heartland, it's about 183 acres of land. Dubai real estate business at the point of time was in the low. I had a feeling because I used to tell my son-in-law all the time, who's sitting here, that this country, when we are talking about 2009, when we are really struggling, 2009 I told him, this country can never go down. Enough is already done in this country. Nobody can challenge this country. And it will come back. I'm talking about Dubai. I was 100% confident that Dubai will come back. And 2010, 11 middle we started discussing. 2011 and we concluded the first deal. The whole market, I know what I heard from the market. They said this is a big fool who has taken this kind of a decision. Because nobody could believe that this was a decision. Probably I will contribute that factor not to numbers, but the gut feeling. So gut feeling probably gives you an opportunity, and 80% of the time I've seen businessmen, while the numbers are very, very critical, but certain areas, where you really hit this thing is your guts. The creative ability and the ability to understand anything without the support of numbers.
One of the most famous billionaires in the world, who is also a great philanthropist, Warren Buffett, and he also talks about exactly what you just said, that you go against the market. And when the market is down, that is where the greatest opportunities are. Have you done, obviously you gave a recent example. In the past, did you have examples like that?
I'll tell you, we went to India to do business, real estate business, after many years in the Gulf. I went to India in 1994, it's 20 years ago. I went about 30 crores rupees, Indian rupees. And I used to go, I understood the city. I used to bet on a street, on a road called Sajapur Road in Bangalore. People used to say that I'm a fool. Even dogs will not go there. So I requested a friend of mine, I don't want to reveal the name, he used to head the finance department of one of the largest companies in India. They were located in Bangalore. I requested him at that point of time, you got enough of cash. Why don't you buy 100 acres of land on that particular road? So he said, no, this, that. It was 30 lakhs rupees. I have to quote in lakhs rupees now. I can convert that in American dollars and give you, because a lot of people may not understand. So
see, that's why we know why he has to have this thing in his pocket.
It's $50,000 those days, and it is $50,000 an acre available. 100 acres was available. Today it is about $5 million an acre. So that's a kind of price difference, it went up, it shot up. So I was in that road, always, all my buildings were on that road for many, many years. And actually I developed that area first. And of course today it's one of the most expensive areas in the city. I think when you go to, I think a lot of business people have this strength, that unknown, that is an unknown thing. It has no statistics, it has no, if you ask me what exactly could be the reason for you to be in Sajapur Road, you cannot explain. Even now when I go to this thing, I'll say Mysore Road I will not bet, in Bangalore. Delhi also I used to say this place is better, that place is better. If you really ask me what exactly is the reason, I do not know. I feel this is the best place.
Right. I mean, I think most people, including myself, felt that Maidan was too far away. And an open space there. Who is going to go there? A friend of mine, he used to run the IMAX cinema there, and he said, It's too far away. I said, it's not. It's about 10 minutes, 12 minutes from Burj Khalifa and Dubai Mall. What are you talking about?